adult kids who are both neurodiverse in various ways. And this is talking a bit about just the lessons I've learned along the way and hints for anybody who is parenting or grandparenting or doing anything of the sort, helping to discover how to help somebody that they love who is neurodiverse, or how to be neurodiverse for that matter. And so there's a couple of talking points I want to say. First of all, it has to come from unconditional love. That's step one. That's step one. We love our loved ones, all of them, every single bit of them, and we love them unconditionally, and that just has to go through the entire thing. There's a process in diagnosis that parents in the kind of communities I go in called peeling the onion that happens. And so what happens is when you've got a kid who's just not developing the way you think they are, you start trying to figure out what's going on, and eventually you get a diagnosis. And you're like, aha! And if you're anything like me, who's a natural optimist, and then you say, okay, it's ADD, we're gonna add some medications and everything's gonna be perfect. Guess what? There's always another layer of that onion. And what do you get when you peel onions? By the way, you cry sometimes. And so sometimes what happens is there's a set of layers of trying to figure out what makes a neurodiverse person tick. What are the various challenges and strengths that they have? And over time, it's a series of uncoverings. It often isn't all at once. And along the way is a series of adjustments. And some of the adjustments that happen are positive in terms of saying, okay, now I understand that my child has this strength and this challenge, and so we can balance it. And honestly, some of it is adjusting in terms of adjusting expectations, letting go of some expectations while bringing in others. And there is a place for grief. There's a place for having to let go of things that you were hoping would happen and needing to replace that with other goals and other celebrations. So it's important to be gentle with yourself as a parent and recognize that there's two sides of this, that it takes a while to figure it all out, and to be gentle with yourself. While you're allowing for your own emotions, however, grief, anxiety, things of the sort, one of my big learnings that I had was that I needed to learn how to manage my own emotions, because my kids could pick up on them, especially this one's sibling, who could pick up on a micron of anxiety. If it was just going like, then all of a sudden his sibling would just shut down. And so I had to learn how to let that go and to be able to parent from a place of calm and centeredness to allow them to talk about their anxiety and what was happening. Because otherwise I was just making the problem worse. So that was a learning that I had to do as well. One of the other things that came up a lot was had to do with figuring out, because kids are kids, so the answer is it that they can't do it or that they don't want to do it? Because there's all the time that kids don't want to do things. So when is it I want to get away with this versus I'm unable to do this? And that's a process, and it's not always easy. And one of the things that makes it challenging with people who are neurodiverse is that, first of all, some things that a neurotypical person may find easy, they don't. The other thing is that energy levels and ability to manage things may vary day by day, hour by hour, even minute by minute. So the fact that my kid could do something yesterday doesn't mean that they could do it today, because today was different. And there's a thing that you may have seen, there's a thing called spoons that they talk about, which has to do with that somebody with a disability starts the day with a certain number of spoons, and it takes this many spoons to do this. Anyway, at some point you're out of spoons. The analogy I like has to do with the idea that we need to cross a river. And my neurotypical colleague over here has a bridge to go across, but we got a rowboat. And the rowboat has oars, and sometimes they work, and sometimes the oar locks are wobbly, and sometimes one oar gets into the river, and sometimes the current is going the right way, and sometimes the current is going the wrong way. But somehow we have to make it across that river. And to me, that kind of better kind of explains that whole concept of why some things can be so easy sometimes and so hard at other times. what else did I want? One of my biggest learnings had to do with the fact that all parents need to learn to kind of let go of the idea that we own our children's behavior. And for me, to let go of not only the fact that they're responsible for their victories, but that they're also responsible for their challenges and for when something doesn't happen the way that they wanted it or that I hoped it would be. That was super important for me to let go of and to be ready to understand that my kids needed to make their own decisions, have the consequences of their decisions, and to be able to deal with those consequences, and that it was not on me, it was not reflective of me, it's their journey, not mine. Before I figured this out, I used to try to do things to kind of bring them along. If I can scaffold this, and scaffolding's necessary, but that if I can keep scaffolding this, then eventually they're going to be able to do this thing, be it college or whatever the heck it was. And what I realized is it was kind of like if you're pushing a wagon, and the wagon has crooked wheels. The wagon has wheels that are battered and kind of multangular and stuff. You can push that wagon as hard as you want, but it's never going to gain momentum on its own. You're going to wear yourself out pushing a wagon, and it's never going to go. And so I had to let go of that too. I had to be able to understand that my kids needed to make choices about what they wanted to push their energies towards. My kids needed to have the responsibility to decide what their victories were and on their terms, and to support them every bit and to figure out where I could be helpful, but that it was never my wagon to push. It was always theirs. So,
and they're not wagons, there's a butterfly behind me.
Yeah, there's a butterfly behind me. So, the other couple of things.
The song was about butterflies.
Yes. My kids dealt with a couple of different exceptionalities, including being what they call twice exceptional, being gifted as well as having a neurotypicality. That was its own challenge. Having a math teacher saying, well, I don't understand why you think your kid is struggling. They're a B- student in my class. And being able to say, you don't understand, my kid is falling apart. So that was a challenge. And one of my advices is find other parents that are dealing with it, because parents of neurotypical kids just don't get it the same way. And so it was really important for me to find other parents that could give me advice, that could hold my hand, that could help me understand, so that I could be an effective and loving parent for my kids and support them on their journey. The last thing I'll say is that neither of my kids is, both my kids are gender non-binary. There is a big overlap between neurotypicality and non-binary gender identity. It's a whole talk in itself. I fully support my kids in that, and I'm available to discuss that if anybody wants to discuss it, either from Zoom or from here or anything. But it gets its own conversation. So that's what I want to say. And then